How's it going, everybody? I am back with part 3 of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding. This book here that's a mess. The original print from 1985. I don't know if too many people have this one. As you can see, this is in bad shape, but this is the original. And again, this is part 3. And going through this book, and of course, going over magazines as I do, older magazines, it just kind of reminds me of some of the changes that the world has undergone. It just makes me think Google gives people a real false sense of security, because, I became a certified personal trainer, NSPA, a certified conditioning specialist. I got my initial, my first certification long time ago, and it was before Google. And, back then, we didn't have the luxury of just asking a question based on what we wanted to know in the moment. Unless you were in school or in the presence of the professor or the teacher, or you could ask a question based on what you wanted to know. But barring that circumstance, learning just didn't work that way. Okay, you learned by being bombarded with a multitude of different concepts, of course, all attributed to whatever primary subject you wanted to learn, but nonetheless, there were a multitude of different concepts. And to be honest, a lot of these concepts would often conflict with one another, because like I said, you couldn't just ask about what you wanted to know. In the process of mastering something, you had to learn about certain aspects that maybe you weren't as interested in. So, for example, when I got into the fitness industry, my primary interest was this stuff here, bodybuilding. Okay, that's what got me into the industry. That's what I was more interested than anything else. But of course, being that I wanted to be a professional trainer, I didn't have the luxury of just focusing on bodybuilding. As I studied, my manual, for the NSPA, and the various other books that they gave us to read, so forth and so on, I was bombarded with other concepts like physical therapy, functional strength and mobility training, sports conditioning training, like plyometric drills and speed and agility training, development of explosive power, neuroplasticity as applied to exercise. Because, when neuroplasticity is applied to exercise, we just purposely try to make it more complicated, so that it's better for the neuroplasticity of the brain. And think about it, there's powerlifting, and physical therapy and bodybuilding are like night and day. They're completely different. All right, functional strength and mobility training are like night and day from powerlifting and bodybuilding. Neuroplasticity is like vastly different from, physical therapy and sports conditioning training and bodybuilding. So these are all concepts that conflict with one another. They just do. And before Google, you had to take in all of this information, and you had to find some way to reconcile all of these varying concepts within your brain. You had to find some way to accommodate all of it, to rationalize all of it. And of course, at some point, you find out that, they are all underneath the same umbrella, the umbrella of exercise. And there are similarities, although they're still like night and day. And that's how you become an expert. or that's how you become knowledgeable by overcoming all of these conflicting concepts and finding a way to make sense of it. But when you use Google, it really gives you this false sense of power because you're able to circumvent everything that you aren't interested in. You can just focus on what you want to know. Let me just ask questions about what I want to know. And it's just fascinating to me because we did not have that luxury, back then. And I think that's partially why there's so much misinformation on exercise all over the internet, because these so-called fitness influencers are basically just Googling what they want to know and pretending that they're experts. When, realistically, education does not work that way. It really doesn't. And if you want to become a good rock and roll guitarist, I play guitar. For some of you that don't know, whenever you hear music in any of my videos, that's me playing, all with the exception of one. I use Motley Crue, Home Sweet Home, in one video. But other than that, that's always me playing all the music. I'm a guitarist, and it helps to go beyond just rock and blues, rock chords, like power chords. It helps to go into blues. Well, rock and roll and blues is really pretty much the same thing, but it helps to venture out into jazz chords and to notice some of the similarities and some of the differences. And if you really want to become a good musician, it really does help to learn a little bit about different genres, instead of just sticking to what you're most interested in. So that's pretty much what I'm talking about. And Google empowers you to a point where you can just focus on what you want to know, and in the end, you don't learn as much that way. You really don't. Now, and this brings up another point. All right. If you're a physical therapist and all you know is how to diagnose injuries, or diagnose muscular imbalances and correct them, then you'll be fine because that's what you do. You're a physical therapist. If you're a bodybuilder and all you know is how to target lagging body parts in an effort to make them grow, attempting to maximize your genetic potential, carb depleting, carbo loading, refining, that the last 3 weeks of diet before your competition. If that's all you know, then fine. You're a bodybuilder. So be it. If you are a sports conditioning coach for a team and you train high school athletes to help them improve their athletic performance, and all you know is speed and agility drills, eccentric utilization ratios and eccentric utilization tests and training, that's all you know, well, so be it. That's what you are. You're a sports conditioning coach. But if you're a personal trainer, say that word with me real quick. Personal trainer. What does that mean? It's very generic. You have to be ready to train anyone if you want to be marketable, if you want to have any longevity. So the personal trainer is the only fitness professional that has to know a little bit of everything. Like I said, I mean, if you want to have any longevity, it's not going to help you if all you know is bodybuilding, or even if all you know is physical therapy. It's not going to help you. You're going to need to know more than that. We're the only ones who need to know something about everything, is the personal trainer. And I say that because personal training is often seen as a scam. And especially nowadays, these ignorant people think, oh, I can just Google it. Yeah, you think you can, but you can't design a program like I can. You can Google shit until your thumbs start to cramp up. You can't design a program like I can. It's just like I've been doing it for so long. It's just forget about it. Okay. Personal training is seen largely as a scam when it really isn't. You know, 'cause like I said, we're the only ones who have to know everything. You know, nobody else has to know everything. I mean, like, of course, there are physical therapists who know how to design strength training programs. Maybe that's where they got their start. You know, there are versatile physical therapists, versatile physical therapists and versatile strength and conditioning coaches and so forth. Sure, it exists, but they don't have to be that. They can get away with just sticking to their niche. Personal trainers really can't. So the next time you're in your local gym and you see that personal trainer, and you know, 1 minute he's working with a little old lady who has a hip impingement, and then the next minute he's working with a bodybuilder, and then the next minute he's working, you know, with a high school athlete, having him do plyometrics. You know, put some respect on his name, man. You know, because we're the only ones who do that, really. Or we're the only ones who have to be able to do that. You know, like I said, other people can be versatile, but they don't have to be. They can get away with it if they aren't. You know, and versatility has saved my career, because when I was a youngster, this is mainly what I was interested in here. You know, bodybuilding. And you know that this isn't going to help me when I have a little old lady with a hip impingement. You know, this isn't going to help me if I'm training a high school athlete, you know, who needs to build explosive power. You know, this isn't going to necessarily help me if I have a kid who plays wide receiver on his high school sports team, and he wants to improve his anaerobic threshold, you know, so we can run, so we can sprint longer. This isn't going to help. So there's that. Put some respect on our names, man. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series here, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding. You know, it's a real good, I guess, subject as a video, because there are a lot of really great pages. I mean, a lot of really great pictures is what I meant to say. You know, and after this one, I'm going to do Joe Weider's Ultimate Bodybuilding, which I would imagine most of you haven't seen. I can't remember where that one is from. From around this time, or maybe a couple of years later, 1988. But that's a really good one. And this is what I'm talking about. This is a really great book, you know, as far as, you know, pictures and so forth and so on. Some of the information is probably outdated, and the same applies to this. But as far as pictures, man, you know, these Arnold Schwarzenegger books and Joe Weider books just can't be beaten. Almost every page is chock full of legendary pictures. Got Mike Christian in here. Man, it's really funny. As many times as I've looked at this book, I don't remember seeing Mike Christian. You know, I remember seeing him in Pumping for the Gold, which I've talked about that before. It could be in the, could be on YouTube. Not exactly sure, but that was a great documentary. And when you look at that documentary, you know, Mike Christian was looking so ripped. It looked like he had a chance against Lee Haney. Of course, Lee Haney won. If I'm not mistaken, Pumping for the Gold documents the 1988 Mr. Olympia. But look that one up, you know, and if it's not on YouTube, well, I didn't lie to you. It was on YouTube at one point, but it got removed then. But it's called Pumping for the Gold. This is Those triceps are huge. I always liked and still love this one. Although I prefer doing it with dumbbells because you can go for a neutral position as well as a supinated palm. And it just gives you a little more versatility, you know, so you aren't hitting it the same way all the time. Like I've said before, you don't want to sit in the same spot on your couch because sooner or later you're going to put a dent in that couch, you know. And if I'm not spelling it out enough, I'm talking about overuse injuries. I always like this one too. This is underutilized. Hey, look, lying dumbbell extensions. This is just what I was talking about. But he can simulate this as if he were doing it with barbells as well. You know, you just have so much versatility. He can just supinate or pronate, depending on how you look at it. Either supinate or pronate, and then he's basically simulating barbell extensions. So, a little trick there. Kickbacks, yeah. But yeah, man, Google is not going to make you an expert. Google is a good place to start, but it's just not going to make you an expert on anything. And remember, you know, real learning isn't just sticking to the good parts. It isn't just sticking to the parts that you're interested in. You know, it's venturing out into the aspects that maybe you aren't as interested in. That's just how it works. Being bombarded with concepts. Yeah. But Google has everybody thinking they're an expert. Well, I can just Google it. Man. And you know, sometimes there's misinformation on Google. I Googled anaerobic exercise just to see what it said. Not too long ago, since AI is taking over, I wanted to see what it said about anaerobic exercise, and it was wrong, you know. And I wish I could remember word for word what it said, but it was something to the effect of exercise done without oxygen, something like that. I think it was exercise performed without oxygen, and that couldn't be more wrong. You know, that couldn't be more wrong, because you can't produce ATP without oxygen. You know, at some point you have to stop and start all over again. And it's, you know, you start off aerobic and you have oxygen. Then you go to the creatine phosphate system once you can no longer produce enough oxygen to produce ATP. And then once that energy system fails, then you have to stop and start over. So you can't produce ATP without oxygen, you know, for very long. You know, now you do produce ATP, that stands for adenosine triphosphate. You produce ATP without sufficient oxygen for a short period of time, and that's when you go into the creatine phosphate system. It's aerobic, anaerobic, creatine phosphate system, and then you shut down. You have to rest and start all over again. That's why you can only sprint for so long. Okay. That's why you can only lift weights for so long. Sooner or later, that lactic acid builds up, and the muscles can no longer contract. You know. So, but they said that anaerobic means training without oxygen, and there's more to it than that. You know what I mean? Because you can't. So ATP is the cellular fuel that rules your body, and you can't produce ATP without oxygen. You know. So there's that. So they were dead wrong. And then I reworded it. I just worded it a little different. And again, I can't remember exactly what I said, because this was just a random test about of me challenging the AI on anaerobic exercise. And then I worded it slightly different. Same thing, but I worded it different, and they got it right the next time. You know. Anaerobic exercise. It's exercise done. Anaerobic exercise is exercise done where, in a way that it's so intense that eventually you run out of oxygen. And like I said, you can continue for a short period of time, but then it's all over. But in order to constitute anaerobic, trust me, it starts with oxygen. You can't even get there without oxygen. Because again, you can't produce ATP without oxygen. So you can't just rely on Google for everything. You really can't. So yeah, man, bring back old methods of study. Stop thinking you can just Google everything and become an expert. You can't. Really simple. All right. I'm at over 20 minutes here. And I'd like to do a part 4. Because I think toward the end of this book, I do run out of pictures. So I think that I may have enough space left for a part 4. So I think I'm going to draw to a close. And if you guys liked it, please click the like button. And if you're new here, please subscribe. It definitely helps out and makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference. And please leave a comment. What do you think about Google? What do you think about old-fashioned ways of studying, which I personally think are far superior? Like, I'm sorry, but if you think you can just rely on Google, anybody who thinks they can just rely on Google has a lot to learn. It's a great place to start, but it doesn't replace real study. It doesn't. So anyway, so leave a comment on how you feel about that. Like I said, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys the next time when I return with more information on the fitness industry, personal training, and strength training in general. Thanks for watching PLA Mind and Body Works. Have a good one.